So we're going to get started here right on time. We promise we'll finish on time. And so we're going to talk today about how to connect to any API.
Right.
Without writing any code. So you're not going to see us write any code because we'd be violating the first directive of this webinar as well. So my name's Don Murray, and I'm one of the founders of SAFE.
Yeah.
Still get excited about technology in particular. Get excited about the cloud, server, parallel processing, elasticity, Docker, all these sorts of great things.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here with Stuart. So tell you a little bit about yourself, Stuart.
Yeah. So I've been here 2008, so 8 years now.
Wow.
8.5 years, and I work on the cloud team. So those of you who know FME Cloud, our enterprise product running on Amazon, and also Hub, and really anything to do with cloud technologies or APIs or the web side of the business. So
yeah, good. I still remember the day you started, or the day somebody walks into my office and said, "There's this guy named Stuart Harper at the front, and he wants a job." I was like, "Wow, where's he from?" "Oh, he's from England." I'm like, "Oh my goodness." He met you at some
in Esri.
Yeah, at an Esri event. So that's who we are, as in Stuart and Don. So at SAFE, for those who don't know what SAFE does, we're all about moving data. Right. So our mantra sort of is, data has a natural place where it wants to be. Could be in a database, and our whole thing is getting data from wherever it is to where you want it to be.
Exactly.
And so we've done for years. We've really nailed the. If we talk about bowling alley analogy, we've really nailed the spatial one. We're really the spatial moving guys.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what kind of spatial, 3D, satellite data, LiDAR data. Yeah. If it's spatial, we move it.
Yeah.
And so now as with web search. So one of the things that is exciting is, of course, there's services that are spatial as well.
Yeah.
So, but at SAFE, we do all kinds of things. We're not strictly spatial. People might think of us as spatial, but really any kind of data you want to move,
right?
We do it. And this webinar, we're going to talk about web APIs.
Yeah.
And that really to us is just to connect these things together. Really, what are you moving?
Just data.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, spatial data is probably the most complex form of data you can get. So we're good at that. So the standard JSON, tabular XML data.
Oh.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, JSON and XML, Stuart just so if you want to just watch a 2-minute video, we're not going to watch it online, but go to www.safe.com and click that play button, and there's a great 2-minute video if you have no idea what we do, and you'll learn all about it right there. So that's worth your while. So what is an application programming interface?
Well, there's a technical definition of it, which is we could talk about the resources and the GET and the POST and the HTTP and all that. But I think the key thing for an API is what it allows a company to do is expose the core business logic in a stable and secure way. So this is really crucial because all the tools and services that these cloud companies and all these different vendors provide. It allows them to serve these up to developers or just their general customers in a stable and secure way.
Yeah.
So you can interact with, whatever business logic they're exposing through this one interface, and you know what to expect.
Yeah.
And that's key.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is cloud companies have always had APIs, but now it's so competitive out there. It's not whether your API is there, it's how good it is.
Right. So really everything must have an API now.
We would not, internally at SAFE, we would not consider a product without an API, a cloud product. So you need to get your data in, as we'll see later. You need to get your data out, and you need to synchronize and be able to access everything.
That's right. So even, when I buy commercial products, like I bought a Wink hub for my house so I can control my lights, talk to my alarm, and my Nest cams. I did some research, and one of the reasons I bought Wink is it too had an API.
Okay.
So now with FME, I have my alarm company send me an email every time that my alarm is either armed or disarmed, and I can turn on my cameras on and off because I don't really want my cameras on when I'm in the house. It's that's kind of creepy. So really, the API is everything. And like Stuart said, at SAFE, we don't get anything. We're moving. If you look at where we're moving to really focused apps. Each one has an API because now the challenge is you got to connect them so that you get more value.
Exactly, yeah. And it used to be a website, it used to be a phone as an entry point to a business, and now it's an API, like as a core component.
That's awesome.
So why are they becoming so popular? The first thing is we're just seeing a massive shift of both infrastructure and data to the cloud.
Yeah.
And obviously data comes with infrastructure shifting to the cloud.
Yeah.
We've got Amazon, we've got Azure, we've got Rackspace, we've got all these vendors allowing all this infrastructure to shift to the cloud.
Yeah.
But we're seeing more and more data. Like, where do you get your data from? NASA now.
Yeah.
You go to Amazon. Amazon,
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
All these other vendors.
Yeah.
You know, it might be on S3, it might be on Dropbox, it might be on Drive.
Yeah. And applications we get, again, Zendesk, Twilio,
right?
You know, Live Chat, Zopum, all these things, again, Salesforce.
Yeah.
They all have APIs, and so
they're becoming easier to build and consume.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll talk about this a bit more in the next slide. But you used to have to code.
Yeah.
You used to have to know what you were doing. You used to have to develop infrastructure.
Yeah.
Now,
you
can build an API in half a day. On top of a database. So that's crucial.
Yeah. And consume them is trivial, like this thing I talked about.
Right.
I mean, I barely know what I'm doing, honestly.
Yeah.
And able to get it working. So anyway, so yeah.
You were kind of just talking about this, the rise of mobile and IoT as well. Certainly mobile, the API kind of microservices infrastructure really lends itself well to mobile.
Yeah.
So we've seen an explosion in kind of mobile-based applications that back up basically app developers.
And this API first strategy. So I know it's safe on cloud. You guys have always had an API first strategy.
Yes, yeah. Every product we build must have an API.
Yeah.
And before we write code, we go out and always look for a service before we write the code.
Yeah.
Because we really only want to write code that's business logic, that's tied to safe's IP essentially.
Yeah.
We don't want to be writing credit card code or so. That's crucial as well.
Yeah, and I know on the server as well, that each iteration of the web interface is smaller and smaller and smaller because now they too have that API first strategy. Before they do anything, write the API, and once the API is there, then build the web interface or whatever on top of it. Yeah. And there's that famous letter from Bezos that was sent to all the staff at Amazon.
Yes.
Which basically said, I'm paraphrasing obviously, that said, hey, we're adopting an API first strategy. You either adopt this strategy or there's no room here for you.
Yeah, and I mean these companies, Amazon, Twitter, eBay, Salesforce, they wouldn't be the companies they are today if they didn't come out with this API first strategy.
Yeah.
And now other companies are copying them across many sectors, and they're all disrupting as well. So this agility that APIs bring to the modern enterprise demands it.
Yeah.
You need to be able to fail fast. You need to be able to try, throw things away, and move very quickly, and that's what APIs give you.
Yeah. Okay, so good. So what's this slide about?
So this is what comprises an API. I just wanted to kind of give you an overview. This is probably going to be more of a focus in the next webinar, but there's three components that I see comprise an API, and that's the management security, the interface itself, so the resources, the methods, and then the business logic that's tied to each resource that's going to go get the data from the service or the database and present it to the end user. So on the left is where we were originally years ago, the self-hosted API.
Build it all yourself.
Build it all, manage it all, host it, do everything. You needed to know what you were doing.
Yeah.
You needed developers. The next is where we've kind of shifted to this managed API. So the security, the API management, the scaling, the rate limiting, the authentication, that's all handled through a third-party provider. But the business logic and the interface, you still need to define.
You still have to define.
So Rails, Node, Play, whatever, PHP. And now on the right is where we're starting to move to. And that you can create now with this model on the right, I call them disposable APIs. Project-based APIs that last days, months. And so the authentication, the authorization's pulled out into a service. The management's still there in a service. The RESTful interface, you can define in a GUI. Click, click, click.
Yeah. So if I go left from right, you can think of it as a progression of time.
Yeah.
But also as I go left to right, the amount of effort that is required is much, much less.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're going to show you today. This webinar is about what you can do with FME. We're going to get at the very highest level, show you how you can connect these things together using FME.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not going to tell you how to actually build that. That's the next webinar.
Next one, yeah. And the crucial thing on the right is the business logic.
Yeah.
So you used to have to write code, but now you can hook FME into API Gateway.
Yeah.
So you can basically write no code to extract data from a database or a service.
Yeah. No, this is exciting. Yeah. So why should people care?
I think you already said it. I mean, the future belongs to razor-focused applications.
Yeah, these small applications. But even look at what we did at SAFE.
Yeah.
You know, we adopted Salesforce. We like Salesforce. It's a great CRM. But initially, we also used it for support and a bunch of other things, and it did a fine job. But we found much more razor-focused applications for support, much more razor-focused applications for the community.
Right.
And we haven't done the support
live
yet.
chat.
And the live chat. So now, you know, we're still using Salesforce, but now we have our community on a new tool.
Yeah.
And Answer Hub, and it's just fantastic. We're connecting them with APIs, so to our users, they just see this. You know, the experience is just, you know, enriched.
Right.
But from our standpoint, we get more information. But we're not copying all the data out in that case. We're leaving the data where it is, and this zinging the data back and forth, that's necessary.
But now our data is fragmented across more services, so that's a challenge for us.
And that's why that's exactly why we got to connect these things that you're going to show. Yeah.
So what are the challenges for connecting to APIs and working with APIs? And this isn't just a challenge with our tool, this is the challenge
of
if you're coding or doing whatever, other ways to connect. So the first thing is, you know, there's many different implementations of how you build an API. So REST is kind of king.
It's sort of like Parlay, is it? But it's not really a spec, is it?
No, it's basic. REST is it's a guide. It's an architectural style.
So like Pirates Parlay.
Right.
Yeah.
And then everyone's implemented it differently.
Yeah.
So do you put the query parameters in the header or the string?
Yeah.
Do you use a token, or, you know, there's all these different interpretations, which makes it really, really complicated when you're a developer. And then there's SOAP as well. There's still some SOAP APIs floating around, so it's hard to work with these and jump between all these different APIs.
Right.
Constant evolution. So how long did an Oracle database version hang around for?
Yeah, I mean, basically, if you had it on site, you could have that Oracle version as long as you needed. You decided when things changed.
And it was years.
Yeah, exactly.
Or even we still work with them. It could be decades sometimes.
That's right. They're still running the thing works and they don't want to change it, right?
Yeah. So with APIs, you don't have that luxury.
Yeah.
And web services, they're going to roll forward new APIs. They'll probably version them. Yeah. But they might deprecate them and
but they're never going to go away, right? Like, you're not going to have a web service out there that's just going to disappear.
So we might have that happen last year.
That's right. So that could happen too, right? It's not normal, but it has happened.
It does happen, yeah. And it causes a big headache.
Yeah.
So you have to be aware of this. And the other thing is error handling. So again, connecting to a database, a local connection, you're over a socket, it's stable, it's pretty stable, TCP/IP, something like that. APIs, you've got the network to deal with, you've got the fact that patching a live stack. There's always issues. I mean, even Amazon, they go down.
Sure.
So you have to deal with that. Deal with that situation.
Yeah. You're going over HTTP, so. Yeah.
So the other big challenge is authentication. Right. So this is a real problem. Again, we've got these many standards: OAuth 2, basic, token, OAuth.
Yeah.
OAuth 2 is it's the most popular now in the modern API.
Yeah. And again, it's a guideline. It's not really hard. Yeah.
And it's a guideline that's got so convoluted and complicated that the guy that originally founded the guideline left.
Okay.
So he's not happy with it, but we're stuck with it.
Yeah.
And again, Facebook have done it one way, Twitter another,
Foursquare another.
So this is a real challenge.
Yeah. So as we added support for that at SAFE, we initially did initial implementation. Oops, then we hit Facebook. Okay. Slightly different. Add the capability to also handle that flavor.
Yeah.
Then you get a bunch more. Then oops, you hit another flavor. Okay. And over time, we're we think now we have them all, but we're never 100% sure that there's not another flavor of OAuth. But
right.
if somebody hits it, let us know, and we will make sure we deal with that.
Exactly.
OAuth 2 flavor.
Yeah, there's 14,000 public APIs out
14,000.
So we can't test them all, right?
No, exactly. And they're changing, like you say.
Exactly,
right?
yeah. So they're the general challenges. So let's look at the data integration challenges now. So obviously we're talking about data integration and connecting.
Yeah.
So there's two main challenges here. The first is this bulk migration.
Sure.
So let's go back to our Salesforce example, shall we?
Yeah.
So you're in Salesforce and you want to migrate to Zendesk for customer support.
Yeah.
So how do you go about doing that? You need to load all your customers across.
Yeah.
You need to probably load all of the old cases across, maybe.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of things you might have to load across.
Yeah. And they have, of course, each system has a completely different data model.
Right.
And so moving it across, Stuart's put some of the things there. You're going to have to do a lot of attribute manipulation. You're going to have some is as simple as just renaming the attribute. Yeah. But some of them, you're going to have to split them. Maybe one system had first name, last name, the other one just has name.
Yeah.
And then you get into, you're going to find some fields that are required in your target system just weren't in your earlier system.
Right.
And vice versa, not all the data is going to match. And then you have the issue of duplicates. Some systems, the duplicates can exist, but maybe in your target system now that's a key. Yeah. And so, you get all these sorts of things, and that's just where Safe's lived for years, is this whole challenge of how do you move data.
And the other thing is the data might not all just be in Salesforce.
Yes.
You might need to connect to an Oracle database. You might need to connect to, I don't know, Zopen Live Chat to pull some metadata out.
Right.
And so you've got to be able to merge and join and basically reshape the schema.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's tricky. It's tricky to do in code as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first challenge. That's the one time, or it could be a repeatable process, but it's a big kind of leap you have to take when you're moving.
And with FME again, no code.
No code. Yeah.
You have to understand the data models, of course.
Yeah.
But no code. Okay.
So the next thing is you're up there now.
Yeah.
You're using your new services, but I'll just say I think some people join up to all of these new services, and you can see the ones we use on cloud here.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of forget that they're generating all this data up there. You should be aware you're generating data, and you should be wanting to get at that data and sync it and analyze it and look at it, because there's a lot of information spread out. So, I mean, we're using, 20 odd services, I think, for FME Cloud.
Yeah, look at that.
But there's definitely challenges with doing application integration.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to data, the only time you're getting value out of data is when it's moving, right?
Exactly, right.
So,
So a few key things when you're integrating services, often you want to do this on a schedule.
Yeah.
Daily, monthly, weekly, hourly.
Yeah.
You want to sync systems, so you need a tool that you can reliably schedule to do that job.
Yeah.
And you need the tool to give you notifications if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
You don't just want to set it and forget it and just hope it works.
Yeah.
Event-driven support.
Yeah, because some systems will allow you to put a webhook in when something happens. So Slack, for example, you put a webhook into a channel.
Yeah.
And then when something's posted there, you can get a notification, so you don't have to poll or schedule. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it's essentially wrapping a few more enterprise features around this integration workflow.
Yeah.
And we'll look at some case studies around this a bit later. Okay. So now let's see, kind of from a high level, how FME helps solve these problems.
Okay.
So the first thing are the readers and transformers.
Right. So with FME we have many different readers and writers, and many of those are cloud-based. So here's one, DynamoDB. There's another what we call transformer, enables you to read and write to Dropbox. There's Salesforce Reader, and the list just goes on and on and on.
We basically picked the most popular web services, and then Safe has added support to the product. So you can see these are the ones that we added for 2016 or overhauled. All the big guys are there. And these allow you to add a connection point into a workflow, and all you need to do is just enter username and password or add a token, And then that's basically it. You can connect and start pulling data down.
And for these ones, the user wouldn't even have to know what that's REST is being used. We leverage the REST API inside of those.
Exactly, yeah, it's all hidden from them. So that's the first nice thing. If you're hitting the big popular web services, this is where you start. So the next level down is we have this transformer called an HTTP caller. So this is my favorite transformer. This is the one that opens the doors. The 14,000 APIs, this is the guy that allows you to connect to them. You do need to understand a little bit more, don't you, about how they work?
On this one, you're going to have to open the REST API doc. But again, we do have a strategy so only one person in the community has to figure this out. So
exactly, and it's still no coding. You don't write Python or anything.
No.
We'll show you in a second what this looks like, but this is really good for bulk migration and system integration. And crucially, the most complicated part isn't just entering the URL to the endpoint; it's authentication.
Exactly.
So this is in the product this year, 2016.1. And you see we've got an HTTP caller there, and we're connecting to the Instagram API.
Okay. And again, we don't have Instagram out of the box, so this is just showing you how easy it is.
So we're going to add in a web connection, they're called, and I'm entering my username and password for Instagram. I log in within the product. It goes out to Instagram, gets a token, and now I can connect and pull data down from Instagram. So it's that easy. And that's really what. Obviously, there's no code here. You just need to know the URL.
And the REST call.
It took me 2 or 3 minutes to do this.
Great.
We have this kind of support for OAuth 2, token, and basic. And you can obviously upload it to our enterprise products as well.
So to FME Server and FME Cloud. So that's the authentication, and this looks trivial, but this was it's a huge amount of effort.
It's 18 months of coding.
Absolutely.
It's impressive, and it's complicated, and
we took that pain from our users.
So the next level is this FME Hub. So what we want to do here is there's 14,000 APIs out there. Some are market specific in different verticals. Some are country, location specific, Germany specific. We can't do all of them.
Well, there's also APIs that like you said, are project based. There's no way we're ever going to do a project-based API because there's no way we're going to know about it.
Exactly. So if you go to the hub at hub.safe.com, I think Robin's going to chat that out for you. You can start searching for transformers. So, there's one called Twilio in there that someone's contributed, and that allows you to send SMS messages. And it uses the API underneath, but actually it's just a nice transformer that you drop down on the canvas. So we're going to be seeing a lot more of these being added. You can see a few in here. But I think this is the model going forward.
Absolutely. And then we're going to build the framework. We'll do some of them, and then the community can create these and check them in and out, update them, maintain them. Exactly. It's exciting.
And I think this helps with the constant evolution thing because the community can fix, as a new API rolls out. So that's crucial.
Absolutely.
And this is where FME, I feel, is extremely powerful. And that's on the data transformation side. So there's a lot of tools. If you go out there and Google Salesforce to Zendesk or Salesforce to wherever, there's point-to-point tools that allow you to do a translation and move data, but they don't allow you to do any smarts. They just allow you to connect and sling the data across. You need to be able to get at the data. You need to be able to clean it. You need to validate. You need to join. And these are where all the so-called transformers are just amazing.
Could you go back to the hub just quickly?
Sure.
Because you hit an important point here, and I just want to make sure people realize that the hub is going to have, just go back to the home page, the hub's going to have two things ultimately. It's not just, it's going to have the web connections because sometimes those require somebody to dig in deep and figure out how that works, but it's also going to have the transformers. And ultimately our goal is that, let's say you're working with Wink, right? Somebody does something with Wink, and this is a thing, it has an API. Ultimately, we want to be to the point where somebody in the community puts the entire Wink solution up there, like the transformers and the connection, so then the next person using Wink doesn't even have to know the APIs. They just download the thing. So so the hub I'm just really pushing up right now. But it's so what we're doing. It's just going to greatly reduce the level of effort for all our users. So it's very exciting.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So, thank you.
So these, I think Robin's going to chat. But how many transformers have we got now? 400.
Something like
and
that.
Then
Yeah, it's hundreds. And then there's the hub ones, and
you can do pretty much anything.
Yeah.
XML, JSON, database, like you name it.
Yeah, and then and then one of them's called like the Python caller. So if there's some Python library you want to leverage, you can create your own. So yeah, it's super powerful. Yeah, so this is just talking a little bit more about the event-driven side of things. And in this one, Stuart talked a little bit about a schedule, but one of the powerful things about our FME server product and FME cloud product is you can set a webhook, give that webhook to a third-party application, and then when something happens, now that triggers data flows between these connected applications via their APIs.
Right.
And then what that does, and we're using this at SAFE a lot, is the connected applications actually provide higher value to the organization than these single products working, alone. So I think about how the value we get of things like Trello, live chat and the community, getting all these things connected is just gives you way more visibility of what's important to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen a customer doing this with GitHub.
Yeah.
So they have a webhook watching a specific branch on GitHub.
Yeah.
And every time they push to that branch, it triggers a workflow on cloud that goes and looks at the GitHub data and then moves data over to Amazon.
Wow.
So that's, this event-driven processing. Servers just start listening, waiting.
Yeah. And we're seeing more and more of these web services have the ability to take a webhook so they can push stuff out.
Exactly, yeah. It's very powerful. So this is kind of, you need these fault-tolerant things to be there as well. We feel when you're working with, especially doing the synchronization, we talked about scheduling, but you need to be able to retry the request, maybe kind of like an exponential back-off, keep retrying it, and then if it fails after 10 minutes, then send an email or, alert the person it's not working. But that's really, really important because you might end up having hundreds of these small little jobs running, doing work, and you need to know when there's an issue.
Yeah.
You need to know when an API is being deprecated or it's timing out. It's key.
And like you said earlier, sometimes the service is just down for a period of time. And so again, you would need to know that. Yeah.
Okay, so first case study. We're going to look at 3 case studies now that kind of tie in and wrap together everything we've talked about.
Okay.
So the first one's about data access. So we've been talking about accessing data kind of over traditional APIs like Dropbox, Trello, all of these APIs that are docked. But what FME is very good at as well, we just want to talk about, was pulling data from API endpoints.
Yeah.
So this is a little few slides from Devon Energy. They did a talk at our World Tour in Calgary, and it's actually on the wildfires in Alberta, which is kind of timely with the devastating fires in Fort McMurray.
Yeah.
And this was actually very helpful during that period, and it's still ongoing. But what they use it for is Devon Energy use it to basically see if there's any fires encroaching on the infrastructure.
Right.
So thanks to Mark for letting us present this. And this is their internal app.
Yeah.
And they also have a mobile app.
Okay.
So they need this kind of service-based architecture.
Yeah.
And it just shows that, background mapping of all the actual fires, the satellite data with the live smoke on it, and then fire incidents. So the crucial thing here is the data needs to be up to date.
Yeah.
So really, the only place you're going to get it is over HTTP.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a disk sent to you in
No,
real time.
no, and you don't really want it. If it's on the web, you want to just access it live. Yeah. So there's 4 sources here.
Right. So the Alberta government provide a wildfire information via CSV and Azure Feature Service.
Okay, good old CSV.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right, you can never get rid of it.
Never get rid of it. Yeah.
British Columbia is a KML, which is like the Google Earth format.
Yeah.
And then we're pulling background mapping off NASA.
Okay. So this has got to be pretty complex.
It's pretty complex, but the workspace is pretty easy.
Yeah.
So this is the one pulling the data from the Alberta government.
Yeah.
So it's obviously pulling it in CSV, which is no location, just an XY.
Yeah. But you can see with FME, any format, if it has HTTP : as the location of the data, FME just knows, hey, wait a minute, okay, I'm gonna just go to that link and pull it down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Excel file on Dropbox
Or sheets or
sheets, anything. Like
Yeah.
we can access and pull any basically file-based data set
Sure.
out.
Yeah.
Tabbed or delimited, whatever you want to do. And in this
XML,
one,
of course, would be
XML,
a
yeah.
tab.
Yeah. And here is output into the geodatabase and also ArcGIS Online,
Okay.
which is for the
So
mobile.
outputting to 3 different places, 2
Right.
geodatabases and ArcGIS Online.
Exactly.
Wow.
And these were all shipped with the product.
Yeah.
So he just added them.
Yeah.
The reader and the writer.
Yeah, so you can see how simple this is. No coding, because in fact I didn't have to do anything to hit the HTTP there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of just to give you an overview of hitting these data sources.
Yeah.
So the next thing is we're going to go back to is the data migration.
Right.
So this is the story about moving into a web service via an API.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk through one of our own situations essentially, and we kind of already brushed on this, but we used to have our knowledge base in Salesforce.
Right.
So that was the knowledge articles, over 1,000 knowledge articles, a Q&A site, and there was a few other things as well. And then we also had Trello, right?
Yeah, where we had all our ideas. So we had a Trello board that users who were really motivated could get in there and add ideas for us to put into a product.
Right. So we wanted to get everything in one platform.
Yeah.
So we started looking for products,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously the first thing we looked at is, does it have an API?
Yeah.
Can we get the data in?
Yeah.
So we're using Answer Hub.
Yeah.
And Answer Hub has users, articles, Q&A, and ideas all in one data model.
Yeah.
But then we wanted to also offer single sign-on.
Yeah.
So this is a new thing rolling out with Safe, and it
Yeah.
uses Auth0.
Yeah.
And all that is so that you can log into Knowledge Base, Hub, eventually Cloud, just with one login.
Yeah.
So we had to load the data into 2 user models,
Mm-hmm.
which is tricky. So
Yeah, so there's going to be duplicates because, of course, you had users who were in Salesforce and in Trello,
exactly.
and somehow you had to try to match them to get them together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, so there was the general challenges
Yeah.
that Devet ran into when he was doing this, connecting the API errors,
Mm-hmm.
creating a repeatable process.
Mm-hmm.
But more interesting are the kind of the specific issues that we ran into.
Yeah.
So
Data model differences.
yeah, exactly. This is the data model in Salesforce on the left, and this is the data model in Auth0. So the first thing you can see is there's a lot more information in Salesforce.
Yeah.
So that needed discarding.
Sure.
But then Auth0 turned out to be a lot more fussy.
Okay.
And it had to be. It's a web service. It has strict login details. It didn't want special characters in the username.
Okay.
There's character length issues.
Okay.
And what we found is we started moving data from Salesforce to Auth0, and we had to clean things up. We had to remove special characters.
Right.
We had to truncate. But then we ran into the issue, we started creating duplicates.
Yes. Yes.
So then we had to deal
Figure
with
out how
that,
to- yeah.
and create unique. So we did all of that,
Mm-hmm.
no coding, of course.
Yeah.
And we also had to load the users into Answer Hub as well.
Yeah.
So they synced.
Yeah.
So that was a good problem to run into.
Mm-hmm.
The next is loading ideas.
Yeah.
Again, this time we were pulling from the Trello API.
Yeah.
You can see this was an idea for Internet as a file system. Great idea.
Yeah. Fantastic idea.
Some customers have been commenting, and then we had to pull that across over to the right to the model on the right.
Mm-hmm.
So the one thing here that's interesting is if you can see on the right next to the suggested highlight, there's topics. So in Answer Hub we had this idea of topics, and so everything was tagged with topics. So what we did is we created a massive spreadsheet, and then for each idea we had to say which topic they were associated with. And then when we did the migration task, we merged the Excel spreadsheet with the Trello API to pull everything across. So that was pretty complicated. The other thing we had to do as well is when you're doing an API load, it's a multi-step process. So we'll see that in a later slide, but you have to first load the user, then get the user ID. Then you can load the idea, then you get the idea ID. Then you load the comment. So it's a different way of thinking to when you're loading into a transactional database. You can't just go one SQL query. You have to do it in steps. Loading Q&A as well. So the key thing here is loading attachments. So all of the attachments were in in Salesforce in their own proprietary system. And fortunately, Answer Hub let us put them on Amazon, so we could cache them and make it fast. We had to load the data up to Amazon, then we had to get the URL back, and then we had to integrate the URL into the content. All done within FME. So, you know, we can connect to all these web services, and we can do it in kind of one step that's very, very easy for the end user to look at, to understand. If I pass this to you, yeah, you can understand it, right?
So how much of the effort was on connecting to the APIs, and how much of the effort was just resolving the data model issues?
The complicated part is always the data model. You need to understand the data model, and the data model in this case is the API. You know, you have to go and look at the API. But with FME, you can just pull it in and look at the JSON, and you don't have to always rely on the doc as well. But you can see here, you know, we're pulling in the ideas from Trello, then we're pulling in the comments after we've done the first load, then we're pulling in the votes on the comments, we're using merges, we're creating attributes, and we're doing a lot of cleanup and things. So there's a few key transformers there, but you don't really need to know that. It's more about this manipulation of the data model. Okay, so that's that example. That's a bulk migration, and we see a lot of customers doing this as well. So the third is the application integration. So we've got a kind of a little demo now, just to show you. And so this demo, imagine we just had a big conference. We're providing a Google form where people can rate the conference. So they can give a rating on, you know, how much they enjoyed the conference, the relevance to the job. And what we want to do is we want to look at the response. And based on the response, we want to create tasks for people. Because if they weren't happy, we need to alert sales to contact them and discuss things with them. And that's, you know, that's what we want to do. So what we're going to do is, let's just walk through this. We have an event feedback form here. So I'm going to enter my email address here. Okay, and I'm going to rate the event poor. Wasn't one of our events. It's a fictitious event. And how relevant do you think it was to your job? It wasn't that relevant. Okay, so I'm going to submit that information, and that goes into a Google form. So we can see it should appear in here. Oh, it's just gone into the Google form. So now I have this workspace that runs. So let's have a look at that. So this workspace, it extracts the data from Google Sheets, because we have a Google Sheets reader. So you can see here, I'm accessing the Google Sheets API with a token, and here's the spreadsheet URL. But I'm running this every hour. So I only want to look at the inserts that have gone in the last hour. So I'm using this date difference calculator transformer that's come from the hub to look at the date compared to now and give me the difference. And then I'm just testing to see, you know, is it less than 3,600 seconds? So let's run this. We should go out to Google Form, pull the data in, hopefully one of them should pass. And then what we're doing is we're using the email address to go to Salesforce to pick up all the metadata from Salesforce. So, you know, we need to pull in the phone number, we need to pull in the name of the user so that the salespeople
can you open the Salesforce reader just so we can have a quick look?
Sure, yeah. So, yeah.
So basically you can see there's this where clause. So we've hidden again the whole Salesforce API, how to talk to it.
Exactly.
And there's your where clause, which basically is Salesforce syntax.
Yeah.
So, you know, FME, when you're creating these things, you don't have to worry about it. That's just passed lock, stock, and barrel to the Salesforce API underneath. Yeah.
Yeah, and the login's all taken care of as well in here with the username and password.
Yeah. Good.
So we've pulled our metadata down. Now what we're going to do is use the tester transformer to check the event rating. You know, did the people think it was excellent, average, poor, offensive and rude? Hopefully not. So based on the response, we're going to either, if it's excellent, we're going to send a message to the team and give praise to the team. If it was poor, we're going to send a message to Trello, the sales guys can follow up. And if it was really bad, we're going to send a message to you so you can jump on it.
So the Trello one's going to create a Trello card?
Exactly. So if we go in here, I have a task now. It's to follow up with the customer, and we've actually inserted these. He has a poor experience in the recent conference, was rated 2 out of 5. Here is his phone number and here is his email. So the sales guy can now follow up and chase that down. And if we just look in the Trello connector here, you can see I'm using the action to create a card. And if we look in the description here, you can see it's not hard-coded. We're using our kind of syntax to pull the information directly from the Google spreadsheet.
Very cool. So what other actions are there?
So let's have a look. Yeah, so we can create a board, comment, create a list, delete a card, get boards. So yeah, it's
okay. And of course, each of those actions underneath was corresponded to one or more REST calls.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we've missed one, well, you could ask us to add it, or you could just use the HTTP call and do it yourself in theory.
Or download it from the hub, update it, and then push it back so everybody would benefit.
Yes, that would be, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's just a small demo there. The next thing I want to talk about is automating training signups. So this is a real life scenario. And so what it is when you sign up for training at Save Software, you use GoToMeeting. So you're going to go to GoToMeeting, you log in, but what we want to do is create an automated process, essentially, to, firstly we need to load you into the CRM Salesforce. So we have a scheduled task that runs 3 times a day, that hits the GoToMeeting API, and loads the registered users into Salesforce. So we've previously created, it's called a campaign in Salesforce, like a training campaign, and we load the users associated with that campaign. Then Ryan or whoever's doing it gives the training, online training that's free, right? And the trainer, once he's done, he goes into Salesforce and he manually sets the campaign to completed. We then have another FME task that runs and it checks and it looks at the completed campaigns and it says, okay, which campaigns have completed and not been processed. It identifies these campaigns, and then what it does is we go out to GoToMeeting and we pull the attendance information from the GoToMeeting API. So we're saying, Don, you were in that webinar, but were you actually in the webinar? Mm-hmm. There's loads of information on GoToMeeting, how long you were logged in, were you paying attention, did you last the whole thing? And so we pull those statistics in and we look at them, and if you meet a certain goal in terms of attendance, essentially, we send you a certificate via email. So now you know how to game the system, but it's nice because it's fully automated and we're meshing together GoToMeeting via their API and Salesforce via their API as well.
Yeah, in the past we would do this manually. So we had somebody go through and try to figure out, who actually attended, because not everybody who registers actually attends. So this has been a big time saver, and our clients are happier as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So this, just to dive into the details a little bit, that the other example, we showed that because that used the readers, the writers, the transformers from the hub. In this example, Shane, who's built this, who used to love to code, by the way, now he loves FME, he used the HTTP caller transformer. So let's look at that. He's going to webinar, going to the GoToWebinar to get session info, then he's getting the webinar attendees, then he's getting their time, so how long have they been paying attention, and then he's loading things into Salesforce.
And you can see him chaining the different HTTP calls together.
Right, and that's that multi-step process. So here's I wanted to just show you the request URL is going out to Salesforce. But the nice thing here is, you can add query parameters or headers. We support everything. But Salesforce has this funky, they essentially like to do inline SQL within the query. Sure, that's fine, we can do that. And so that's hard-coded there with the campaign ID from an attribute.
So here he decided to use a Salesforce REST call rather than use a Salesforce reader.
Yes, and that's because the Salesforce API has, thousands of API calls. We pick out the ones that we think are the most suited to our customers' needs, but you can do what you want with the HTTP caller. So that's kind of wrapping things up. We've covered a lot. But
The message is APIs really are the key. So if you're implementing new systems, make sure they have an API. Then the next challenge is going to be connecting them together. And we're working hard, and FME is very good at doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, this was about connecting. We're going to have a white paper out. There's been 3 blog posts on this as well, talking about this. The next webinar in June is going to be about creating, as we've said. So in an hour, we're going to walk you through creating an API.
Right.
A fully functional API on top of a Postgres database in an hour. So.
Good. So this was about how or the what you can do with FME to easily consume them. Yeah. So it's so that's great. So there's some questions here. So we'll go through some of those.
Okay.
There's a few that told me to stop talking, so I did that because I get excited, and then with the mic I talk over you. So thanks for that. I appreciate that. So there we go. So somebody said, can I create my own mapping services API using FME?
So I think that's next time, right?
So the short answer is yes. And then in June we're going to be showing you how to do that. So yeah. And then is there a reason he keeps saying yep to everything? Yeah. So so that was the one that thing made me be quiet. So thanks for that. And the webinar is going to be available to replay at a later date. Yeah.
We'll send an email out with an infographic and some links as well.
And somebody says, I have an existing web batch process where I take an address file, import into a database tool, load it into a geocoder, then have IT load the result to our production database. Absolutely, you can do that with FME.
Yeah.
Many customers, they'll call out to a geocoding API, perform it, and then move it directly to the API. So FME is very strong at that. Replicas, we do have people who have synchronized. There's one of our, we have a good story about that, where people have used FME to synchronize across databases. And again, the databases they could be different types of databases. They could be the same, different data models, all that kind of stuff. So we can do that. It's a great question here. When I'm creating the workflows, can I preview how the data is changing at each step? And again, within FME, as you run, Stuart just brought it up, you'll see these little dots here. If he clicks on any of those dots, up comes a data inspector that if the data is spatial, you'll see it in a map. If it's not, you'll see a table.
Yeah.
And if it's in a map, you can look at the attributes as well. So absolutely, you can do that. Okay. So we can practice. So so somebody's wanting to learn how to build these up. So absolutely, you can download FME. There's we're pretty generous with the free evaluation, so you can get going, and then reach out to us. Now, if somebody have a question, how can they get in touch with us? What's the easiest way?
I like the new live chat. Yeah. So if you go to safe.com, and right on the homepage there in the bottom right corner, you'll see leave a message. And we're online. I think between 9 and 5 Western. Or you can send a message to the support team. Which is a really great support team.
But the send message or live chat's the best. If we're not there, then the message does go to the support team. So that's really easy. Okay. So then there's questions about spreadsheets. I have a spreadsheet that's been shared with 50 people. Can I get the updates that which person has edited, omitted it to the spreadsheet? If that information is available, the answer would be yes, we'd want to take a look at that. But if the information is not in the spreadsheet, then the answer would be no.
Right.
Yeah. So, okay. Do you have an API for Yammer?
Yammer. Oh, that's the
it's a social media
media for business. I haven't looked at it.
I don't think we do at this point, but if Yammer has an API using the things we do now, we could easily do that. So that would be one. And again, if you want us to help you with that, we'd be happy to learn. And
I mean, I'll throw it out there. Any API you want to connect to, if it's not in our product, contact me. See my email there, stuart.harper@safe.com, and we will help you connect to it.
So in other terms, most of the FME transformers are APIs. At a lower level, like within FME, there are ways you can call them, but really the unit of work that we expose through a nice API is at the workspace level, and you can put fancy APIs on top of a workbench or workspace that Stuart's showing now.
Yeah, we try and hide the complexities of the API and the readers and writers.
Yeah. Okay. Somebody asked, as you still got 15 minutes, can you show a quick example of that Instagram API call? So do you have that one handy? We showed that one on the road.
We did.
Where basically you log into Instagram, you take a picture. So you could take a picture of me. Hey, you could take a picture of me.
Yeah.
And then we're putting Stuart on the spot here.
Keep talking.
But the answer is yeah, and it's
the web services. Yeah.
Yeah, if you go to Safers there, I think you'll find it, and then you go down to web services, and then you'll find Team Capital's one just works. Yeah, and then it's a really nice one because it's really simple. It's one API call, and you're able to do that, and it's again a toy example, but it's a lot of fun. So
let's try out a web connection. So
okay.
We're going to go to Instagram.
Okay, so Stuart's doing this live.
So we'll have to look at the. Okay, there we go. So if we run this now, what we're doing is we're using the V1 user's self media recent.
REST call.
REST call.
Yeah.
It's going to get the most recent picture in my feed.
Yeah.
And then we are using the JSON extractor to extract the URL from the return JSON. And then we're going to read the image in. So what we should see.
Yeah, one thing we didn't mention because we do it so well is the input and output of many of these REST calls is JSON.
Right.
And we've worked with JSON for many years, so that was kind of, sometimes you get lucky in this industry, and the fact that we had nailed the JSON use case for so long, and then that was the preferred method of sharing data was a nice win for us. So yeah, so Stuart quickly extracted the URL for the image from his
we used
Instagram. And,
exactly. Yeah. So we read in the JPEG image in, and then we can start. It's a raster, so we can then do what we want with that.
Good. Do you consider OGC services as a type of API? Great question. Yeah, we do support OGC services from the client side. Now, we've baked most of those in, so WFS, WMS, things like that. Yeah. Now, if there's another OGC service that you want to hit, absolutely you can, because at the end of the day, an OGC service is an HTTP address. In that case, the things that are sent back and forth is XML.
Right.
And GML is often the package that comes back. So if you type WFS, you'll see WFS. So that's an example of the OGC. That's a good one. We should call it OGC WFS, so I'll make a note of that.
Yeah.
And WMS as well. And then there's other ones that you can call. And again, they may not be there, but at the end of the day, we have knowledge-based articles, and so reach out to us there. But absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I think that's
great. Okay.
Yeah. So thanks. Thanks. So, and absolutely, we can help people connect to APIs. So like reach out to us. We're really excited about this. There's 14,000 of them out there, and we're here to help make sure that our platform is as easy as possible.
And we've got a few training coming, a few free training sessions coming up.
Yeah.
There's one in June for server and desktop.
Yeah.
Take a look.
Great. And there's our worldwide user conference next May, so in Vancouver. So stay tuned for the announcement. So if you want to come to Vancouver or you want to present on FME, learn about FME, put that on your calendar for May 15th. So thank you, Stuart.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
Stuart did all the heavy lifting for sure, and just a great job. It's always fun, Stuart. And thanks to everybody who came today. We really appreciate your time. We know that this time is good for some and not so good for others.
Yeah.
It's that
A bit late in Europe.
it is a bit late. If only the world was flat, maybe it would have been easier. But there you go. So thank you so much.
Thank you.